Welcome, and thank you all for joining this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. In this show, we cover a broad range of topics that cater to CRE newcomers and industry leaders alike. I'm your host, Ashley Kobovitch, Director of Partnerships at Crexi, and today we are thrilled to sit down with Landan Dory for part 2 of our episode here today. A little bit about our guests for those who didn't listen to our first conversation. Landan Dory is the founding member of North Star Brokerage Advisory based in Austin, Texas. His team specializes in RV and mobile home parks, net lease investment properties, and executing 1031 exchanges as a tax sheltering and estate planning tool. Landan has demonstrated a track record of success, having completed over $350 million in commercial property sales in over 21 states and counting, making him one of the nation's foremost experts in selling investment real estate. Using a specialized and targeted approach of representing property sellers, Landan has distinguished himself as a go-to option for many property owners, ranging in scale from private property owners to some of the largest real estate companies active in the market today. Landan was born and raised in Midland, Texas, and graduated from Baylor University with degrees in finance and real estate. He lives in Austin, Texas, with his wife, Megan, 2 boys, and their husky named Charlie. Landan, welcome to the podcast.
Very happy to be here and in studio this time. This is going to be fun.
I know. It's so exciting to have you. Thank you so much for traveling just to see us.
Thank you for opening up your doors.
Of course. Now, I know that we just covered your bio for a lot of our listeners, but I'd love to hear more about what you've been up to since our first interview, can you believe it or not, way back in 2022.
Yeah. Wow.
So walk us through what's new with you. When we first sat down, you were still with Avison Young, and a lot of updates since, working with partners and beyond, now your own brokerage. So tell us a little more in your own words.
Sure. So still in Austin. I've got 2 kids now. We're having a lot of fun on the personal side of things. And left Avison Young, spent 3 great years at Partners Real Estate. Wonderful company, had a great time there, learned from some of the best in the industry. That company's growing like crazy. I would advise anybody, if you're looking at a firm throughout the Southeast, really check out Partners. It's a great place to work. And just recently, January of 2025, I went out on my own, was able to bring a couple folks with me from the old firm, actually retained my entire team, was very fortunate to do that. And we've started North Star Brokerage and Advisory. So very excited.
Oh, I love that. Congratulations to you. I personally have worked with you for quite some time.
It has been a while.
It has been a while. I love the way that you talk about partners as well. I mean, huge shout out to that team. And thank you so much for getting us in there as Crexi and myself. But really great to retain your team and then also start on your own. Huge success. So tell us a little bit about why that came about. Why did you want to start North Star? Why now?
Yeah, it truthfully wasn't really on the radar up until about the last 6 months. Really what I wanted was to stay at Partners for a really long time and become a partner, hence the name. But over the last, say, 6 or so months, I've started having this idea or this realization that, hey, if I'm going to get to where I want to go in this business and accomplish the things that I want to do, I'm going to have a better time doing so with the flexibility of doing it on my own. With a more nimble, more lean team that we can go out and execute the very niche market that we work in without the, added expense of being at a big shop firm.
Yep. I completely understand that. And that's the genesis, right, for a lot of different people, right? You are niche in your team. So, doing that I think is really going to be beneficial for you and the squad there. Give us a little bit of understanding about what the name means to you. So inspiration behind North Star. Give us a little peek behind the curtain.
The name is special, and a lot of people can take credit for it, and I'm not actually one of them. But when I had my first kid and then I had my second kid, it became more and more clear to me that I can't just spend all my time working, which is what I had done mostly. I wanted to find a better way to do my business. I wanted to find a better way to be more present at the office, be more present with the family, just get the best of all the worlds that I could. And I woke up one day and I realized that if I spend more time at the office, it's less time with my family and vice versa. So I had this maybe sort of mini midlife crisis of trying to figure out what the heck am I actually doing with my life. And I've been working for probably 7, 8 years at this point and didn't really know what I was trying to accomplish, didn't really know where I was trying to go. So I spent some time in reflection and talking to my wife and talking to some friends about what is this supposed to look like? What am I supposed to want at this point in my life? And what I eventually narrowed it down to was I needed to define what my own personal North Star was in business, professionally, where I wanted to go. What's that thing out in the distance that I'm chasing, that every single decision that I'm making is either getting me closer to that or further away from that. So North Star has been a term I've been using within the team for 2 or 3 years now. And when this opportunity really presented itself, I spent weeks, if not months, trying to figure out what the heck to name this thing, because I did not want it to be something cliche like Dory Investments or anything like that. And it was actually a phone call with my mom while I was driving to go pick up my wife's car, just kind of racking my brain about what sort of ideas that I could be, and this is where we want to go. And she just said casually, well, that's your name. You're always talking about North Star. Why don't you just use that name? And it just clicked and stuck ever since. Everybody on the team liked it. Everybody I've talked to about it really likes it. And it really does. It defines the team. It defines what we're trying to do, which is go out and achieve this thing that right now it's off in the distance, but every single decision that we make gets us closer to that or further away from that. Every single person that we hire, every single deal that we take on, it's either moving us in that direction or further away from that direction.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's amazing, right? It was in the back of your mind already. It just
It's always there.
sometimes takes, just sometimes takes that aha moment to be like, that's it. That's the name. But I love that you're talking about finding your own North Star, finding your own goals, and then every decision is either closer or further away from that. So I know we just talked a little bit about the why now to start this company, but give us a little insight on once you decided that, how you prepared for it. How did you take that first step, right? A lot of our listeners might be thinking about doing something like that now. Give them a little bit of insight.
Well, first off, be ready to work hard and have some sleepless nights, have a lot of imposter syndrome, and try to figure out what the heck this actually looks like. When the decision was made, why now, that whole conversation, well, the why now is we're in a very special time in this niche product type that we're working in, RV and mobile home parks. I left a space doing single tenant net lease investment sales where when I joined the industry specifically doing that in 2017, there was maybe 20 other guys in the state of Texas that were doing that, and a lot of other folks from your neck of the woods who were calling into Texas trying to compete for those same deals. By the time I left Marcus, maybe even left Avison Young, there was probably 50 to 100 guys doing that exact same product type, and it had caused a lot of competition, a lot of frustration on the ownership side because these people were just getting hammered over and over again. The fees were getting compressed down. It just wasn't a viable business model. So really, we started looking for something a little bit different. And what I found myself doing a lot of was representing 1031 exchange buyers. Those were the people who seemed to be most often buying the properties that I was selling. And I thought, that's interesting. These guys are typically older folks who are selling maybe a 20-unit apartment complex somewhere in California at a 3% cap rate, and they're going to come buy a Starbucks somewhere in Texas and get a 5 to 6% cap rate. They're going to double their money and have fewer landlord responsibilities. So I started chasing that around, talking to other brokers who were representing multifamily owners, landowners, industrial owners. And my approach was pretty simple. I just said, hey, let me work with you on that one or two client that that they want to sell. They just don't know what to do with the money because they're gonna have this big tax thing when they sell. They're gonna lose their cash flow. Let's partner together and go chase these deals. You get the listing side, we would take the exchange side. And that worked really well. We've probably done a couple dozen exchanges that way. And that got me thinking again, okay, this is really working. How do we chase this further upstream to figure out, where the better opportunity is? And there's this really wonderful graphic that I found. It's the Commercial Property Price Index over a 10-year period. And it shows how property prices have increased for different asset classes in a 10-year period. And, retail goes up and to the right a little bit, multifamily up and the right a little bit more. Industrial did really well. But the one that was right on top of everything was manufactured housing and RV parks. So you double click that, you look into it a bit further, and you realize that it's probably one of the most fragmented industries that exists right now. And there's a lot of mom and pop ownership, a lot of unsophistication. It's not heavily brokered, and there's not a lot of really good data out there for it. So all that is somewhat of a perfect recipe to go in there, try to tackle the space, provide a best-in-class service to these mom and pop owners, give them a clear exit of what they're going to go do with their money next. These guys are used to getting unsolicited offers from buyers or wholesalers, very few brokers. Now, there's more now, but now we're bringing something different to them that's a higher level of sophistication. We're coming from a background where I'm working with institutional players, REITs, private equity groups. We're taking that level of sophistication into these conversations, and it's been very fruitful.
Good. I love that. So obviously you're going from niche market, right? First of all, you were maybe one of the first 20 to 50 people, and then you kind of went out of that, and now you're seeking this, right? And then bringing sophistication there. So if any of our listeners obviously want to get in touch with you, we'll give all of that information, but definitely bringing a lot to the market. So extremely successful career, Landan. Over $350 million in sales, you guys, over 21 states. How has that experience shaped your vision for North Star? What are some key lessons that you're bringing into this new venture?
Well, thick skin and a lot of patience helps. I would also say that the focus going forward and the focus in really building out a team was to try to capture some additional leverage. I know after doing a couple years, many years of brokerage now, what my individual capacity is. I tap out at about 20 transactions per year. I can't do anything more than that, or else I'll just lose my mind. So if I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get to my North Star goal? How are we going to accomplish that? I can't do it by myself. I need to bring in a team around me. And, what was the question? I just totally blanked.
Totally fine. What are key lessons that you're bringing into the venture?
Key lessons, yeah. So the key lessons that I'm taking in now is we're going to really lean into leverage. We're going to really lean into scale, and we're going to really lean into creating an organization where everybody has a role, everybody fits a need, and it's not just me strong-arming deals into place and taking them across the finish line. It's multiple people that are responsible for a transaction, which ultimately lets us do more transactions. It's a better service to our clients, and it makes our job a lot more easy long-term.
Yeah, I think that's huge, especially when someone starts a company, right? They want to control everything and they want to own so many different pieces.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah.
Delegation's not my strong suit, but it's something I'm actively working on.
Yeah, it's really, really important. So even just identifying that you're tapping out yourself at 20 transactions per year, and then just making sure that everyone knows their own niche role within the team, that's huge. So talk to us a little bit. You mentioned scale. Obviously, with that comes hiring, coming around culture. So give us a little bit of insight maybe on some qualities that you look for when assembling your team, and then how do you envision, your team's culture and success over the next couple years?
So the culture right now is awesome. We're all just friends. And I had the thought for the first time because right now we've got two guys, one who's just joined us. He's new. He's never worked with us before. And we had another guy in our office just yesterday who he had a bunch of interviews lined up. After he met with us, he's canceled all the other interviews. So I'm realizing quickly that we're bringing new people on, and it's going to change the culture. So the culture, it's going to be maybe a game time thing to figure out how we're going to address that. But as far as being at the company and what it's going to take to make sure we stay on track is just to make sure that that whoever we bring on is also focused on and committed to going out and getting that North Star. That's again, that's off in the distance. That's what we're going towards. We're either getting closer to that or further away from that. And then it's just, are you ready to work? Because there's a lot of folks out there that are ready to work. We've got to be one of them. We've got to work harder and smarter than the rest.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, really great tenants. And I think if you keep the right people around, the culture will naturally build, right? I always like to say, if you want to go out for a beer with someone or, non-alcoholic beverage or something like that, you want to work with the people that you like to work with.
You have to. Yeah.
You really,
90% of this business is just... it's just getting kicked in the teeth. So if you're going to get kicked in the teeth 90% of the time, you might as well do it with people that you like.
Right. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So Landan, if we're to sit down in 10 years, where do you hope North Star will be, both in terms of market impact as well as personal milestones?
Really good question. I know 10 years down the road, we're going to be multi-market. and I don't really have a roadmap for that yet. It's not something I'm actively thinking about. Right now, I'm trying to take this little fledgling group and help it fly. So I know we want to be multi-market, but really a focus of mine is to make myself as obsolete as possible. I've been the driving force of this organization for a long time, and I'm trying to help put other people into place, empower them to do the things that are critical to our success that don't require me stepping in. And maybe even I want them to get to the point where they're saying, hey, Landan, we're not going to let you step in on this because it's my tendency to do so. So yeah, I want to get it to a point where everybody is there that wants to be there. Everybody's in a position to succeed, and we're all having fun doing it.
That was really, really great. I had a mentor early on in my career that said, if you want to continue to excel and you want your team to excel, then hire someone to replace you, right? Or train someone to replace you, right? There's a thing that everyone's like, I want to be irreplaceable, but it's like, actually, you don't.
I want to go out there to the beach.
Exactly.
I want someone else to do it for me.
I want to sit some Mai Tais on the beach somewhere, right? But it's, again, going back to that delegating, it's not wanting to be involved in every single sales call, releasing some control, and then that also is going to give you as a leader the opportunity to grow and then see someone else's life, kind of excel.
And that's a skill that takes time to develop. It's a muscle you have to work out to grow, and you don't really have the opportunity to practice that unless you're actively delegating. And the best decisions I've made have always been around hiring people, even when I had no idea exactly what I was going to use that person for, how to manage them or whatnot. But you can't figure it out until you're in the midst of it. And sure, made some hiring mistakes, absolutely. But for the most part, hiring has been a huge blessing, and bringing people around to share that vision.
Good. So talking a little bit less about the numbers and the deals and into more of that in terms of legacy, what do you hope to do at North Star? What do you hope to leave in the industry? What do you hope your clients and colleagues will say about you as a leader?
Fair. I want to be known as fair. Fairness is a big thing. I mean, there's nothing that gets under my skin like people that don't play fair, and there's a lot of that in the industry. So always be fair, fun, and putting other people in the position to succeed. I'm sure you've seen this cute little picture that floats around the internet all the time. It's got 3 iterations of leadership. There's the one where he's the leader standing on the cart, the other people are pulling the cart.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's the servant leader who's out there in front, and that's always really been more appealing to me. And you see that response in the people that you're working alongside. If I tell you to do something, how much are you really going to want to do it, even if you do it, versus if I'm right there with you in the trenches and we're figuring it out together? That's a whole different type of leadership, and you don't get people to stick around a long time unless you're right there in the trenches with them.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm never going to ask anything of my team that I wouldn't do myself, haven't done myself, and wouldn't do with you right now.
Exactly.
Right? So I love that. Well, shifting gears a bit, I'm interested in learning more about North Star's focus on RV and mobile home parks, especially with deals in the 1031 exchange space. So why do you believe that this niche has the most potential, and how do you see it evolving over the next decade?
Sure. So in most asset classes, you can look back historically and you can see a pretty similar trend. Self-storage is the example that I've used recently. Self-storage was a product type that was kind of birthed in the 70s, really developed hard through the 80s, somewhat institutionalized in the 90s when I think it was Public Storage was the first one to actually go public. 2000s, it was the technology era, so there's a lot of technological improvements. There's also a lot more of these companies now going public. And then when the Great Recession happened, it was an asset class that outperformed a lot of other things because if you had to downsize, you needed a place to store your stuff. So it seemed to do pretty well. And then the 10 years leading up to the COVID pandemic were just the boom years. And that was because there's a lot of new development, a lot of private equity moving into the space, syndications really taking over. People want to own these properties because they've been so inefficiently run for a long period of time. And that's the exact same thing we've seen in the manufactured housing space, and it's exactly what we're seeing right now in the RV space. The brief history on the RV space is so fascinating. RVs have been around for, I think, since post World War II, so it's not a new concept, but the last 10 years have been really defining. So in that boom era, pre-COVID, a lot of people just realize, hey, these things are cash cows. They're low cost to build. You just need dirt. You don't have to be in the best real estate in the city. Typically, you put a bunch of pads on the ground, hook up some utilities, and print money. Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. Problem was everybody had the exact same idea at the exact same time. So it's interesting. There's a report put out by a group called Horizon in 2018, specific for the Texas market, that was tracking at that time about 2,200 RV parks in Texas alone. Our internal system right now, which is scraped from a myriad of different sources, we're tracking just over 3,800 parks. So in a 6-year time span, we've gone from 2,200 parks to 3,800 parks. Now, when the COVID pandemic hit, everybody was home, right? You couldn't go do things. You couldn't travel. So what a lot of people decided to do was go. Why do your remote work from home job in your high-rise apartment in Dallas when you could easily go do it from Joshua Tree or somewhere cool? So that's what a lot of people did. So between 2020 and 2022, every single RV park booked record-breaking revenues. Everybody was a genius. Everybody did well. That added fuel to the fire of this, what I call tourists, the people who were coming into the space for the first time, wanting to buy or wanting to build. It was the ZIRP era, right? So we had 0% interest rates and basically free money. So now you've got parks that are abnormally outperforming historically, and you've got cheap debt, which really, really inflated the prices of these parks for a 2-year period. Now COVID's effectively over, so the revenues have somewhat normalized, and those interest rates are resetting up to a higher number because the interest rates are going up. It's putting a lot of strain on a lot of these park owners who bought or built between 2000 and 2022, who are now having to figure out, okay, what the heck do I do now? In my entire career, I've never worked a single short sale, but in this last year, I worked 7 because there's a lot of people who just found themselves on the wrong side of their loan. So, anyway, there's a lot of that's still coming into this space. There's a lot of new private equity money. There's this new franchising concept that's coming into the market, which I'm excited to talk about here in a minute. But there's a lot of signals to show that, hey, over the next 10 years, if we're at, I think a report shows there's about 75 plus or minus % of parks are owned by one park owners, mom and pops. You follow that trend out to where everything is owned by private equity groups, these large roll-up groups. There's a lot of transactions that are going to have to take place, and it's our responsibility now to put ourselves in the best position to capitalize on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that overview, and I'm sure our listeners who maybe weren't familiar with this space just got a ton of education. So
probably more than most of them wanted to know, but yeah.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. So in terms of RV parks being so early in their development, especially compared to more mobile home parks, what maybe are some of the biggest hurdles, whether it's debt structure, deal comps, or is there something else entirely?
A lot of things. There's a lot of challenges facing it. A big one is oversupply. I mean, you can't put that many parks on the ground without having that many more travelers who are actually going to the parks. So we're seeing most owners facing occupancy issues or rental rate issues, or having to kind of counterbalance those together. So that's facing a lot of folks, unfortunately, not in a good way. The debt side of things, between mobile home and RV, it's completely different debt structures. Mobile homes, you've got access to agency debt, CMBS, and obviously conventional. RV parks, you can get SBA loans. Those are very common in this space, and conventional, but you can't get Fannie and Freddie. So deal structure-wise, they're very different. As far as how they're operated, it's very different. I mean, the risk in owning an RV park is your entire tenant base could clear out in a day if something went down. You just pop the trailer on the truck, and then you go. It's not the same with a mobile home park or a mobile home manufactured house. It's very expensive and very hard to get to move those somewhere else, and you're still renting another place. You're renting the dirt somewhere else for probably the same amount of money. So it's a lot stickier with manufactured housing than it is RV. So as much as they seem similar from the outside looking in, this was my impression of the industry before we jumped into it. They're very different, and the number of people who are actively investing in both is not nearly as many as the people who are specializing in one or the other, which is not something I expected when we got into the space. Okay.
Good to know. Really good insight for anyone in the industry or thinking about this asset type. One of the business strategies that you mentioned ahead of this conversation is creating a proprietary database for RV parks. So, how will this data give North Star, excuse me, North Star or its clients an edge in the industry that currently lacks standardization?
Yeah, so that's a big one for us. And I'm a nerd by nature, so I want the data on everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's no data for RV land,
Right.
and there's very little data for mobile home land.
Mm-hmm.
And the data that's out there, it's either really expensive or it's just inaccurate. So there's no single source of information. There's no CoStar, there's no Crexi with like a really rich database full of information. So we decided to build it. And with tech and technology, AI, all these things, it's so much easier to build these data sets now than it ever has been before, and it's only getting easier and easier to do it. So what we've got right now is all the parks scraped from Google that we can find. It's a scrape that we issue about every single quarter, just in case one park goes down, a new one gets built. We can identify those. And then we've got a team based out of the Philippines who's responsible for actually going in and scrubbing that data, finding the contact information for the owners, checking the rental rates, notating what the pad construction is made out of, whether it's concrete or gravel. And that allows us to build really phenomenal reports to see, okay, oh, interesting. It looks like the concrete pad parks over here are on average 84% full, but the gravel pad parks over here are averaging like 68% full. You can kind of draw your conclusions. And the benefit to that to the client is, hey, if you're wanting to develop a park, you want to develop the most successful park that you can. Well, what is the most successful park? And we can help people make that decision. When it's coming time to purchase a park, what park do you really want to purchase? Transient, long-term, near a water feature, near a major highway, out in the boonies.
Mm-hmm.
These are all decisions that people have to make. So the more data that we can provide, the better to our clients.
Of course. So speaking of data, what is your current take on the role of AI in commercial real estate?
Oh,
Is it overhyped? Is it underutilized? Give us your thoughts.
definitely not overhyped. I would say it's definitely underutilized,
Mhm.
and it's still a technology that's in its infancy. No one really knows what the heck it is,
Yep.
how to use it. But it has absolutely changed. It's going to change the game. I mean, there's so many. You can just look a couple of years ahead and you can see the technology, the pace that it's going, and how it's going to help when it comes to agency, when it comes to data collection, for the real estate side of things, underwriting, abstracting, all the different things that we have to do all the time. And it can do it perfectly without arguing or complaining, and it can do it in an instant. So AI is definitely necessary. It's something that every major firm and even the small firms are taking very seriously.
Mhm.
Something that my last firm was spending a lot of time and mental effort figuring out how do we capitalize on this.
Right.
But it's critical, and a lot of people don't really know how they want to use it yet. So my advice to them, it'd be just start using it. Pick a LLM, start using it, try to replace Google with it,
Mhm.
and then just go from there. And then naturally it's going to snowball. You're going to figure out more use cases for it, ways that you can utilize it in your day-to-day, in your business. And it's the next couple of years, I'm a huge nerd, and I'm so excited for the next couple of years.
I am as well, and some people definitely are afraid of this, or they're not using it to their advantage. And just like you, the other day, someone said, use it as Google. Try to replace it and just ask every single question. Then the more comfortable that you get with it day to day, you'll figure out exactly how to implement it into your life. So that's a really great reminder. Any challenges that you foresee in implementing AI or other technologies in commercial real estate? So either in brokerages, investment firms. We always like to say that CRE is always behind the 8 ball in terms of technology.
I like a decade.
Begging and screaming, older generations to come onto the internet and not say, fax me a contract, right? I'm like, oh, God, all right. So you carrier pigeon for this meeting that we have, But what are the biggest hurdles and challenges, do you think?
I can't speak too much to like regulatory challenges because that's just nobody's made up their mind yet, and it could go in so many different directions. But that's definitely a challenge. I think too that with its ability to make someone almost present everywhere all at once, just with the reach and speed that it can operate, there's going to have to, I think it's going to jade the recipient, right? For sales. If you go from a sales organization where you're having to dial a bunch of phone calls to reach your clients to get deals, now you can just drop an AI, bot that goes out there, contacts people. It it can individualize conversations based on someone's name. It picks up on the pronunciation perfectly. Now you can launch this out across the entire world in like a couple of minutes. So I think that the pushback that the recipient of that is going to have is going to be noticeable. People aren't going to be too happy that a bot's calling them every 5 minutes. But at the same time, we're going to figure out how it works in this next economy, in this next world. It's absolutely going to be a help and a benefit. Yeah, there's some scary, if you listen to Elon Musk or whoever's got their maybe rightfully so, but tinfoil hats on, Terminator style stuff, sure. But if I can abstract a lease in like 5 seconds versus an hour, yeah, you can. I'm a little bit less worried about the Terminator, a little bit more worried about my deadline.
Sure, absolutely. No, I completely agree. And definitely in instances like that, it's going to be super helpful. How do you foresee some of this technology changing the way, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit here with the bots and the phone calls, but specifically in the way that brokers are currently prospecting and what their process looks like, let's just say maybe over the next 5 years?
Oh yeah, there's so many ways. Well, the example I just used,
Right.
the AI bots have gotten really stinking good. One of my associates is demoing this one software. I won't say the name of it, but it's cool because you can it's like an auto dialer. So you can dial out a bunch of people at once. You can start a conversation with the bot and it'll immediately loop in the agent so you can actually pick up the Sure. So that's really cool. But there's going to be so many applications. There are so many applications, from lease abstraction, underwriting, market analysis, building proposals. Gamma is one that there's I think his name's Topher Stevenson on X is always talking about Gamma, which is you can upload all your information about whatever pitch deck you're trying to put together in there. Gamma, are you guys familiar with it? With Gamma?
I've heard it.
Okay. And it spits out a pretty stinking good looking proposal or presentation, pitch deck, whatever. And that's something that you're either doing yourself, spending a couple hours on, or you're outsourcing to somebody else, spending money for
How much money on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to provide a lot of opportunities. I think it's going to provide more jobs too. I know people are worried about losing jobs, but I think it's going to make people more effective in their jobs. The whole VA overseas talent concept, which has been very normalized over the last decade, it's making those people more effective. It's helping around language barriers, and it's I think it's going to be an overall benefit to the economy.
Yeah, I agree on a lot of the different benefits, and same exact thing. I think with the jobs situation, especially in such a commercial real estate driven business, it really is that personal touch and things like that. So I mean, you're still gonna have to go out and shake hands with people, kiss babies, so to speak. You're still gonna have all of that personal connection. This is just gonna be a benefit in my opinion.
I think so. I mean, you can't replace
people.
I don't think you can replace me. When I go out on site and I'm meeting with some like 85-year-old park owner who, doesn't know how to log into his own email, which is an actual example from recently. It's like, yeah, they want to use me. They don't want to use ChatGPT.
Exactly. No, I love to hear it. So zooming out a little, I'd love to hear more of your insights on the Texas commercial real estate market in general, especially as we're heading into this new year. So give us your 30,000-foot overview of the state of the market based on some deals that you're currently working on.
Yeah. So, I mean, Texas is still on fire. It's where everybody wants to be. When we market a property, we obviously use Crexi and we funnel everything to Crexi because the data collection from the leads. And what that will show you pretty clearly is that a lot of the people that are looking at our deals, and we have anywhere from 10 to 20 properties on the market at a time, a lot of them are from Florida, are from New York, are from the West Coast, or they're from the Midwest, and they're not all Texas locals. So people obviously want to be in Texas.
Yep.
As far as where in Texas, the Texas Triangle is, it's exactly where you want to be. It's what's growing. That's I-35 down from DFW to San Antonio. I think it's I-10 across to Houston, and then 45 up back to DFW. I mean, that whole area is just primed for development, primed for growth. It's where people want to be. The net inbound migration to Texas is, I think, maybe only second to Florida. So, yeah, it's going to be strong. I'm very excited for it long term. I'm super grateful that I just happen to be kind of at the center of all of it there in Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the biggest opportunities you see for investors in your market specifically today?
The big opportunities, I think they're is the same as they've always been. It's like buy good real estate in the path of growth, buy it at below cost basis or cheaper than you can, or using bad phraseology here, but just don't overpay for things. Buy something that's in the path of growth. Buy something that you're confident in, and buy something that you know something about. You don't want to go like the big threat that I see to this industry, and I see a lot of the big mistake that I see a lot of people make is they start putting money in with, say, like syndicators who are relatively new upstarts that don't really have a grasp or have never been through a market cycle or have never really lost their shirt. And there's a lot of that going on right now too. So my advice to people is just be smart, be conservative. You're never going to get rich overnight. It's not going to be a couple of years. Those are anomalies. Be smart, invest for the long term, kind of like boxing, protect yourself at all times. And yeah.
Appreciate that. So that's a really good overview. Any specific warning signs or red flags in the market that you think that either brokers or investors should be paying attention to right now?
For my specific product type, I'd say the overdevelopment is something you need to be very aware of. And then two, there's a lot of regulatory challenges faced. I can speak to Texas, but it's becoming a lot more difficult in certain counties and certain markets to build. New restrictions, in some cases, like Williamson County is putting subdivision standard restrictions on building new parks. They have to have curb cuts. They have to have all these new things that cost a lot more money. They're a lot more difficult to put in. The county is doing that somewhat intentionally because they want to curtail all this crazy growth that's happened over the last couple of years. So people need to be aware of that when they're buying something. Another huge issue in Texas is around water availability and septic. Okay. Another way that the state or the city can restrict developments or restrict purchasing or expansions is in the availability of water. In some places, we just don't have it. And then two, septic. Septic requirements just in the last couple of years have gone up from, in certain counties, like 40 gallons per spot per day to, in some cases, 120. So 3x the requirement. That makes it 3 times more expensive to build to accommodate the same amount of spaces. So my point is, when you're buying or when you're building or when you're making these types of decisions, don't just go out on a whim. Figure out what you're going to have to be dealing with for the next couple of years when it comes to getting water, sewage, electric. Right. Demand drivers. Is there a massive infrastructure project coming in, or is it going away? You know, an interesting deal that we're looking at right now is, and it's timely too, given the new administration, is a park in South Texas that has been somewhat dilapidated over the last couple of years, but in the previous Trump administration, the whole entire park was master leased out under ICE. So that obviously wasn't really a thing when the Biden administration was in, but absolutely right now they're having those same conversations. That's going to double the value of the park overnight. So that's the competitive advantage that you can find in the space, but it does take knowing your area and your market and your product type very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to the research and the data of everything, and why it's so important to have a firm or people or agents like yourselves to advise. So, really, really, really important there for all of our listeners. Now, Landan, I know that you've mentioned private equity's potential to drive efficiency and growth in this space. What changes do you anticipate as more institutional players enter the RV and mobile home markets?
More than anything else, it's just a level of sophistication around operations, around reporting, around customer acquisition, economies of scale. If these guys are buying one park, it's going to be a lot more expensive to run that one park versus 10 parks. So people want to get to 10 parks very quickly. Another thing would be the technological advancements. This is very much an old dog's business, and a lot of people that I know and have worked with still do all their bookings on the phone. You have to call in, you have to catch someone, you have to reserve a spot, and that's how you have to get there. Well, then now you've got softwares like CampSpot or RoverPass or whatever else. You can do it online, and I think that's going to go even further to where you could just pull up to a park, kind of scan your phone on the pedestal, log in, or connect up. So a lot of improvements around efficiencies there. Reducing your expenses overall is going to definitely help. And especially when it comes to reporting financially as well, a big issue in this space is that most people who own a park right now are not actively thinking about selling that park. And if you're not actively thinking about selling that park, you're not doing the things that someone might normally be doing if they were getting ready to sell that park, like making sure your books and records are tight, making sure that all your expenses actually show up, making sure that you're actually reporting all of your revenue, which a lot of people in the space don't do. So you got to be thinking long term. You never really know as an owner when you're going to have to sell. Everybody's got their plan. Like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And the 6 Ds are real, right? Death, divorce, disease, dissolution of a partnership, debt, and disaster. I got it on my first try. Like those things can happen. And if you're not primed and ready to go and sell off to the next guy with all your ducks in a row, you're going to be taking a loss on that. So what we try to encourage people to do is, one, we put out a lot of data, white pagers, reports. We try to inform as much as we can based on what we're hearing in the market. The common theme is always like, hey, keep your house in order, get ready, because one day you are going to have to sell. No one lives forever. You're either going to, one thing is going down first. It's either you or your park. If it's you, great, you've won. Your kids get a step up in basis. But if the park needs to sell first, you want to get the most money for that park that you can.
Yeah, really, really great reminders. And I love all of your insight today. So switching in to our last topic, given your expertise, we'd love to close with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
You game?
Let's do it.
All right. First, if you were given $50 million today and had to invest it immediately, what would your go-to asset type and location be, and why?
Texas Triangle, without a doubt. And it really, to me, it doesn't matter the asset class. There's some things I might stay away from, like big box retail. Okay. But what I would do with the $50 million is I'd find people who are specializing in whatever that thing is, whether it's industrial or manufactured housing and RV parks or retail, and then invest with those guys. Let them spend my money so I can go do my day job.
There you go.
That's a much better way to invest. And it doesn't take, for me, it wouldn't take my eye off the ball from my normal business.
I love that. Okay, great. Second question. What is the craziest way you found a new client, either through social media or another way?
Well, you mentioned social media. I've met a couple pretty spectacular clients through Twitter, now X, obviously, but closed a couple deals through X, and that was just posting content that was relevant to people. People reached out. One pretty spectacular example, I won't say any names, but I was doing a deal with a professional athlete, working with him in New York, doing tours on a property that he was going to purchase up there. This was right when the interest rates all really changed, so that deal fell apart. I'm very upset about that, but social media is definitely my craziest one.
That's awesome. A lot of people don't use it enough, and I hear these stories so much. So yeah. I love that reminder. And third, and I promise this is not a trick question, but what is your favorite tool or software that you use on the job?
Let me think hard about that one. So my tech stack is Salesforce CRM. We've got LandGlide for property owner information, True People Search, and a couple other tools for contact info, G Suite for everything. And then without a doubt, it's going to be Crexi. Crexi it's the fuel that fills our engine in the CRM. It's the gigantic billboard over our heads that brings clients and buyers to us. It's the best tool in the space. And I don't know many people that could disagree with that.
Oh, that was sweet. That was sweet. This is what keeps me coming to work every single day.
It's got my $5.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I promise I didn't pay him for it, but $5, that's all right. I'll give it to you after. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. As we wrap up, for anyone listening who's thinking about starting their own brokerage or making a bold career move, what advice would you give them?
Making a bold career move, do it if you're not happy and you think you'll be more happy somewhere else. If you're a real estate broker looking to join a big growing firm, I would just have to recommend Partners again. It's a great company, great leadership, wonderful folks over there. And I'd say if you're starting your own company, the advice that I got was that you have no idea how much work you're about to have to do over the next 12 to 18 months. And that's so true. It takes a lot. It's exhausting, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of like shower conversations with yourself. But at the end of the day, it's been so much fun so far. I'm having a good time. I'm doing it with people I like. And if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I'll check back with you in 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, maybe hopefully my answer's still the same.
It'll definitely still be the same. So proud of you. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you for how many years? 4 or 5 at least.
At least,
you and I have been working together. I've been here 5.5, so I think we were one of the first introductions. So it's beautiful to watch your career and your.
Likewise, I got the tour of the office here. You guys are busting at the seams. There's so much going on here.
I know. It's wonderful to see, but. Thank you so much for taking the time to fly out here, be in person with us. I mean, it's truly something that we don't take lightly. So thank you. Any last things that you want our audience to know, pieces of advice, words of wisdom, anything? Words of wisdom.
I'm not the guy you want to go to, but always play fair, always do the right thing, work hard. You'll be all right.
I love it. I love it. Now, for everyone that wants to get in touch, how can they find you? Social media, email, LinkedIn, give it to us.
We're on all of it. I'd say the best place to go is our website. It's nstarba.com. Letter N, star, letter B as in boy, A as in apple.com. That's got links to all of our socials and everything else.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again. It was really a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Of course. And thanks for everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure not to miss the next one. Visit crexi.com/podcast and sign up to get the next episode delivered straight to your inbox. Of course, you can also subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app and check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.